What's up, YouTube? So I'm doing a video on replacing the front strut on a Nissan Maxima. And to start, I gotta take these bolts out. So we got an upper and a lower that mounts the strut to the knuckle. Gotta remove this clip that holds the brake line. These clips also, they're actually rubber, both sides, that holds the ABS sensor. You gotta take this nut off so we could remove this sway bar link. And then up top, we gotta remove 1, 2, 3. Those 3 bolts. So for the upper bolts, it's a 13 millimeter. Just gonna crack these loose. They're pretty easy to remove. So I'm just backing these out. Probably just leave 2 of them in there just to hold it up once I take the bottom ones off. So I'll just take these 2. I'll leave these 2 actually. Okay, so I'll take this one out. I'll leave that one to hold it. And I'll take that one out. That's it for the top. So I'm actually installing a ready mount assembly, which comes with everything attached already. I don't have to separate the spring from the shock. Everything's already mounted. And what I forgot to mention was there's a plate that usually sits on top of it like so, where you just have to remove the clip that holds it. And once you pop that out, you take the whole thing off, put that to the side. And the same thing on the opposite side. Okay, so on a lot of the sway bar links, which is this right here, a lot of the sway bar links, there's a actual like a bolt or a nut in the back of it that you could just find the size open end that fits over it. So when you start taking this front nut out, the whole thing does not spin. So I've already went ahead, used the 18 millimeter to break this loose on a breaker bar. So now I'm gonna go in the back of this, put it in the back of it, and just go until I feel it seat on the nut back there. And once that's holding it, then I'll be able to come in and take this off. Now I could just go ahead, back this out. Now we have this out. I gotta get a jack, put it under the lower arm so I could raise the suspension up a little bit, get that bolt straightened out, and it'll pop right out. So I have to get these next. And again, this is 21 millimeter. Got that on my breaker bar. Just gonna try and break it loose. May need a bigger breaker bar. So I got my 21 mil for these lower bolts and a large breaker bar. Power tools work just as good, even faster, but I just want to do it with common hand tools. Okay. Sometimes you're able to break it loose. Other times the bolt itself is going to spin on the opposite side. If that happens, just get a socket with a wrench, put on it, hold it with that, and use the breaker bar to crack it loose. So in my case, the low one is turning. So here I got me a 21. So I'm just going to use the box end. I'm going to hold it on one side while I crack loose the other side. Rotate, hold it, turn. Now that that's loose, let me confirm the top one. It's not that hard, it's just very awkward, me trying to angle the camera right, get enough lighting and do it, but it's not as hard as it may seem. Okay, so once I got that, then I'll ratchet it off. And I apologize for the poor lighting in certain areas. My battery died, so the flash went out. So okay, go with the lower one. Now I pop the clip off. Okay, so now I gotta pop this clip out that holds the brake line. These pretty easy. It's just grab the rubber for the ABS, just slide it out, slide out. Those are out of the way. Now I get a large screwdriver for this one and just put it in there like so, and I twist it. And now I could go to pry bar, twist it out, pop this out, and I just brace the screwdriver and the pry bar right on this metal piece right here, and use that to brace it. So now we got everything loose. Got to get these two bolts out, upper, lower, and the bolt for the sway bar link. So once I get my jack, I jack it at this point, right on the lower arm. Just make sure it's not touching the dust shield, so it's nicely placed on the lower arm. Jack it up a little bit, where now this bolt is more straight. So all I gotta do now is push on it and it pops right out. And this is what I was holding with the 18mm. If I could get some focus. Okay, so I was holding this with the 18mm. So pretty much like so. You hold that, it prevents it from spinning, the whole thing from spinning, and you take that nut off. Same thing if you're going to replace it. Now a lot of sway bar links does not have this. It's just round in the back. In that case, you got to use a vice grip. I suggest get a good quality vice grip, real tight, put it on there, spray the bolt down with a lot of liquid wrench, and take it off that way. So from here, got to get these bolts out. So I may have to either jack it up a little bit more or lower it to a point where I could push on these bolts and they'll pop right out, or use a hammer, a rubber mallet or something, and tap it to pop it out. Okay, so I lowered the jack a little bit. I loosed the bolt, the one bolt that I left up top. I backed it out a little bit more, maybe about three threads holding it. Now I'm able to slide the upper one and the lower one. So I'll take the upper one out. And they're the same bolt, but a good practice is to mark them. So what I do sometimes is I'll get a marker and I'll put a mark on it from, let's say right here. I'll just put a line like so, and I'll bring it all the way across to the knuckle right here, so I have them lined up. And I'll do the same for the bottom. Don't mark not marking the bolt and the shocks. The shock is going to get replaced, so mark the bolt and another reference point on the spindle. And once you mark that, you put the bolts back on the same way you took them off, and line those notches back up. And you know, that's just if you want to do it that way. This car is going to get a wheel alignment, so I'm not worried about the bolts coming out wrong. And they're not the type of bolts that affect the alignment anyway, so it doesn't matter if the top one goes in the bottom or the bottom one goes in the top. It's identical. I know on the Subarus the bolts have like a little lip. I forgot what they call it, but it's a little hump, and as you twist it, it moves this whole unit in or out, so it affects alignment. This doesn't. So now I got lower one off. Let me make sure the lines for the brake and the ABS, the sway bar link is disconnected. Take my light out. So now I just have that one bolt up top, and once I hold the strut, push up on it a little bit, I reach up top, back that last bolt that I had in, back that out, and now I could drop the whole thing and take it out. And there you have it. Now I just gotta get the new unit, match it up, and put the new unit in. So here I have the old one on the left, new one on the right. They match perfectly, so I don't have to transfer springs and the bellows and the mounting bracket and all that. Just transfer the whole unit. Okay, so the new unit is ready to be installed, and that's how the top of it is. And these bolts, 3 of them, go in like so. So what I'm gonna do, once I get it lined up, I'm gonna catch one of the top bolts first. So once I have it in like so, I'll rest it right there on the half shaft or axle, and I'll go up top. I'll line the hole up top, catch that hole, and just let it hang. Maybe I'll catch all 3 of them and let it hang. Okay, so here I'm up top, and I'm grabbing it from the bottom with one hand. I just want to line up at least one one hole, catch that one. Once I get that one, then I could rotate it and I could get the second one, and I could get all three. So there you go, got all three. Put a little slack on it. Then I come back at the bottom. I set this, line this up. Now I have some room to work with. I still have my jack at the bottom, so the holes are a little bit off. So I just jack it up just a little bit. Try to get my holes to line up. A little bit too high. Okay, drop a little bit. Just like that. The upper one is in. Same for the lower. Just move the unit back and forth while you're pushing on the bolt. Both bolts are in. Make sure the lines are routed correctly. We're not snapping the lines back in yet. So these are not gonna get clipped back in just yet. We're gonna put the bolts on, run them in. And there may be a actual correct procedure, but what I do is I'll jack it up on the lower arm to put pressure on the suspension before I torque everything down a spec. So I'll tighten it, you know, hand tight, and then I'll jack it up, make sure the weight of the vehicle is sitting on the strut, and then I'll tighten it, both bottom and top. So I got my 21 mil. I hold it. And I'm just gonna snug it up. Snug that up. The top, all three top bolts are loose, so now I jack it up. And what generally give me a good idea is once I'm able to slide the sway bar link in. So generally once I'm able to slide this in and it's straight, Then I'll tighten the bolts. So I'll put this one on. This is a pretty simple job if you're doing it with power tools. Got that? Pretty much there. Just a few more turns. Okay. So now I could tighten that to spec. Tighten the two lower bolts for the shock to spec. Okay, that's good. Now I just got to get the bottom ones. The suspension is still compressed. And this is pretty much how it looks, how it's set up. Got the bar, torque wrench on this end. I'm using a breaker bar, but you use your torque wrench to get the correct torque specs. I have my box end on the other side, and I just tighten that down, get it nice and snug. And once it's snug, it's just to do the same for the top. Go with a bigger bar. Okay, so that's snug up. And I could snap these lines back in. Could actually do this before tightening the 3 bolts up top, but once they're already in, then that's good enough. Get that on. And I have my battery charged up a little bit, but it died again, so gotta use alternative lighting. So if you look, you see the groove. Just set it right here, press it in, and it sits right in. And on the brake line, you just want to bring this in from the bottom. that lined up. It has some grooves and some notches. You just want to make sure those notches are lined up. Get it in. The pin. Well, the clip, you put the clip in. And once the clip is set, just tap it in. Use a hammer, tap it in. Just make sure once it goes in, it is sitting in the groove. And tap that in, and it'll be set at the bottom. Okay, so once the clip is back in, the bolts are torqued down to spec. Everything is looking good. All the lines have been snapped back into place. So now we head up top. And by the way, the suspension is still compressed. So now we head up top. Now we could tighten down on these bolts all the way in. And then once we get these all the way in, torque those down to spec. Put our cover back on, which is gonna sit like so. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.